everybody. I got my first piece of fan mail today. I'd mention his name, but he was asking me something. I think he wants to do something for his wife as a surprise, so I don't want to say his name because give away the surprise if they happen to stumble on the website. Apparently she's seen some of my stuff, but it's kind of cool, you know, people starting to notice my stuff. I mean, that was an actual email straight through my website. When I saw the name, there was actually part of me that thought, my God, that's my ex-wife. Don't even answer. But then I saw where the person said they're from, and being someone who's raised in the who grew up in the Catskill Mountains, the name made sense. It clicked, and I was able to. The name made a lot of sense then, and so I was like, okay, you know, maybe that's not her. She would have. I don't see. I don't know. I'm not gonna get into that. I don't see one of them putting two and two together like that. The other one, I don't know. She might. But it was kind of neat seeing the getting a piece of fan mail like that. But I realized, because of a question that they asked, I realized, I guess, you know, I did do a video once before talking about, you know, the building of this and everything and how I'm doing it, and I don't know, maybe I didn't put it on, I gotta check, maybe I didn't put it on my website, or it might be buried in my website. There is the problem. It might be buried all the way at the bottom of videos. But even though I live in St. Augustine, Florida, I'm really almost never home right now due to extenuating circumstances that are kind of out of my control. Has nothing to do with my girlfriend, has nothing to do with anything that I've actually done wrong. It's just a personal matter that has caused me issues that, you know, the only way to take care of it is to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But I was home 3 days last year, and recently I finally got home for a couple days. It was the first time I actually got to see my my two finished pieces. I got to frame them and everything, and they looked so much better than I imagined. I mean, you know, the way you see them online, but when you actually see them in person and you actually get to really see all the detail, and it is a lot different than, you know, what you see on this, my workstation, than what I actually see when I'm on my laptop. I mean, it's kind of the way I envisioned it. If anything, it was more vibrant, especially my Maryland piece. Officially, that's my masterpiece. I have one other piece that might be better, but I've never shared it. I will never share it. It's a personal piece, and no one's ever seen it. I don't think anyone ever will, actually. But officially, yeah, that Maryland, that is definitely, and it's the only piece that you know, I mean, the two pieces are probably almost on the same level. I mean, they're very different styles, so they're two very different pieces, but excuse me. Sorry, I had a call coming through there. I had to look to see. It says potential spam, so I don't answer potential spam. I don't answer numbers that I don't recognize. I mean, it kind of causes a problem driving a truck for a living, but unfortunately, because of the situation I'm in, I have no choice. I have a stalker. But, ironically, I have a stalker, and I don't even have a stalker for starting to build name recognition. But I do. I have a stalker. But, this whole thing is being built out of my truck. I mean, a lot of what I do is all based on photographs. I mean, some of my stuff, you know, my earliest stuff, I have, one piece that's a really cool piece. It's actually one of my finished pieces. It's this old Ford model, what is that, a Model A or Model A, right? Or is it a Model T? Oh, it's like a 32 Ford. It's either a Model A or Model T. I always get the two mixed up. But the picture I took at a car show and the picture that I started with and what the finished piece is, you know, it really shows how far I go with, you know, what I really do into turning photographs into actual artwork. And then I have other pieces that are actually my originals. I mean, my Tinkenstein, I actually drew that, which was extremely difficult. That was, I can draw, but I'm not someone who draws regularly, and so it's very difficult for me to actually draw that kind of stuff. Whereas, you know, I have other things such as I have three pieces. The Madman's Dead Man's Hand. The Madman's Dead Hand is actually a twist on the Dead Man's Hand, but that's all done digitally, and it's kind of just like my the other piece that I did with dominoes. It's just cascading dominoes. And then I have another piece that it's just kind of a, I guess you would call it an abstract piece. But, you know, all that stuff is geometric, and that, you know, that's all up my alleyway, because that's what I did. And I was supposed to actually have a career in architectural design and blueprinting, and I did all that stuff in high school. I took all, when they used to teach that stuff in high school, basically I took, you know, first year drafting and first year architectural and first year CAD design, and I actually took first year photography too. I was busy in high school. Academically, you know, I wasn't what most people, even though I was an honor roll student, but academically, you know, most people would have considered me an underachiever probably, but it's because I had no interest in academics. I mean, I liked history as a hobby and science as a hobby, but as far as general academics, it bored me. It wasn't my interest. I was more interested in which surprises a lot of people, because, you know, being borderline genius, but I was actually more interested in arts than I was in actual, even though it's easy for me to study it, than sciences and, you know, things like that. But this all started, you know, it just started as a hobby, really, and it just morphed into this, what it's becoming. But that's really the story behind it. You know, it's really not it never started as a business venture to begin with. I mean, in all honesty, it was just it was just a hobby. I've spent the last 7 or 8 years putting together a business model for a trucking company. That was actually my plan. I planned on, in the next 2 or 3 years, buying a truck and building a trucking company. Actually, I guess by now it'd be in the next year or so, I was planning on buying a truck. I mean, I'm to the point now where, you know, that would be that business model that, I've spent years building. And I tried a couple, I experimented with a couple different business models within the trucking industry. I even had this plan for a trailer shuttle business. Things like, for guys, especially with everything going on in California, I saw where I could make a lot of money shuttling from all along the California state line outside of California, shuttling trailers in. And company I'm contracted with now, I talked with the owner about that, and I asked some questions, and he brought up something that I hadn't thought about. And so then I contacted a friend in the insurance industry and asked him about it as well, and he said, yeah, that would be a major issue, because basically what would happen is, if you're shuttling the trailers, because unfortunately, part of our job is load securement, and because load securement is part of our job, we're supposed to inspect the load, but we're not allowed to do our job. They seal our trailers, so you're not allowed to inspect the load. And since you're not allowed to do your job and inspect the load, you don't know what's going on back there. Like, for instance, we use these load bars, but because of the roads being so rough, the trailer does this here, and it shakes the load bars loose. And so you never know that your load bars come loose, and then your load collapses. And basically we have no responsibility for it, because, once they seal the load, they take all that responsibility away from us. They can't hold us responsible for a job that they're not allowing us to do. So it's all on the shipper then. It has nothing to do with it. They can't hold the driver responsible. But at the same time, if you're doing a shuttle business, then you're taking responsibility for the load, because the person who is covered under the fact that the shipper is taking responsibility away from the driver, the only driver that actually covers is the driver that picked up the load. So once you go into this shuttle business, all that protection goes away. They try to hold drivers responsible, but the fact of the matter is, in a court of law, that that's all you need to. I'm not allowed to do my job. They sealed the load. I can't inspect the load, so there was no way for me to. No, so they take all responsibility away from the driver, which they try to put it on the driver, but they really can't. In a court of law, it's a very easy argument. But once you do that shuttling business, though, you lose all that protection. And if somebody knows that the load shifted, maybe they felt the load shift or something, and they're like, damn, and they're an owner-operator, they can actually pawn that off on the shuttling company, and then and then you have the insurance claim. And my friend said that pretty much in your first year, you have 2 or 3 incidents like that happens, and you could destroy the company before the company even made it out of its first year. So we realized that. So I realized that, it was a really cool idea, though. But when it comes to sealed loads, you just can't do nothing about it. If you have loads where it's simply a padlock, then you can still do that shuttling business. But most shippers want to take responsibility for the load and whatever happens to it, so they seal the load, which is surprising. You'd think they'd want the driver being responsible for the load, but it is what it is. But I've had a couple other business models, and pretty much it was just the standard trucking business model was pretty much the best one. I was gonna, because I have a TWIC card, I figured my first year or two, I'm going to be running my truck all on my own. Once I had the truck paid off, I'd go and I'd buy a day cab, and then I'd start running intermodal. And what I'd do is I'd have it where, it's someone, because I'm in Florida and I'm so close to Jacksonville, I was going to set it up where I go into Jacksonville, I pick up the intermodal, and I bring the intermodal back to my property, and my driver using the other truck, takes the load and runs, Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, Florida, Panhandle. And with the other truck, after I have the load ready to be, where it's going to be picked up from, and he's going to pick that up, I would be able to take another load and do local runs down to, with the intermodals going down to Orlando, into Jackson, into Daytona, into Tampa, places where I'd be able to get home every day so I could run a day cab. And then as it built up, I'd be able to get longer and longer running intermodal loads, and have a third truck going. And so, that was my final business model. So, like I said, I laid out a whole business plan. I had a whole business model that I figured out what I was going to do, how I was going to do it. And so this really wasn't the plan. It was just a hobby. But then, I started seeing people selling their artwork online, and I realized I'm biased because, I'm talking about my artwork. But, when I was comparing it to other people's artwork and they're selling their artwork, I was like, well, man, if they could sell that, why can't I sell this? And it's not that it was bad, because, that word is relative. I mean, there's things that people see that, for instance, I'm a big Picasso fan, and I know plenty of people that think Picasso is horrible artwork. I love Picasso. I think it's awesome artwork. I'm not a Andy Warhol fan, though. It's not that I think his work is bad. A lot of the things that I'm familiar with are just boring. But again, that term is relative. I mean, there's a lot of people that they see a can of soup and they're like, oh my God. And, there's nothing wrong with it. We're individuals. Everybody's different. But, it was being able to make that distinction, and then seeing what people are selling online and realizing that, I have a really legitimate competitive chance in the market. And it's just building up the presence is the hardest part. And this here is, like I said, I'm at the very earliest beginning stages of this whole venture. And right now, like I said, I just got my first piece of fan mail today, which is kind of cool. So it shows that it's finally getting out there. And I recently, I took $40 and I did a Facebook promotion for a couple days, and I did it both here in the US and over in England. Which, that actually it covers England, Wales, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and the outer edge of France, most likely too, since because it's actually for the UK. So I'm starting to advertise overseas. My next plan is to advertise. I have some bills I got to pay this month, and then once they're done, I'm going to throw some money at advertising in New Zealand, in Australia, while still advertising in the UK and America. I'm going to branch into Canada. I'm going to start spreading that advertisement out and start building that recognition to Petey Gone Mad, because this is a franchise. But it's literally been built from nothing. It was built from nothing more than a hobby to keep my mind occupied. And I'll admit, in the beginning, some of the stuff, I really tortured some of my family, man. some of my family and friends, I I really butchered some of their photos, but it was the learning curve. I was learning how to use all these different tools that I have. And I started realizing, what I could do with all these different things. And then I started thinking about the fact that, I'm good with color and there's things that I could do. And so I started actually basically using photos like coloring books. And then from that going into adding more and more to them and using more and more tools and using more and more filters on top of the alterations that I was making myself. And that's how this all built up into, turning an old fuzzy black and white photo of Marilyn Monroe into a one-of-a-kind unique piece of art that, no one else can really duplicate. I mean, somebody spends the time, a real artist, they could duplicate it, but it's not something that just anybody go out there and duplicate that piece. But at the same time, it's not. This is something that anybody could do if they put the time in it, but you got to put a lot of time into learning to use all this stuff, especially with the digital photography. I mean, you have all these apps out there, and you have to learn how to use, because I do use some of them apps too. I use some of them apps to do certain things with my photographs, and then I'll bring them over into my suite of digital photography editing programs. I have Photoscape is my favorite one. That's the one I use the most, but I have at least half a dozen different photo editing programs. I have I can't even name all the art programs I have, actual digital drawing programs that I use. I have Ibis Paint. I have Microsoft 3D Paint. I have regular Microsoft Paint. I have two other paint programs that I can't remember the names of them. I don't use them too often, but every now and then I use them because they have special shadowing tools in them. One has these shadowing tools that none of the other programs have. And then there's another one that has this really cool gradient program that none of the other programs have. So I have some that, they're specialized just for one single special thing. I have apps that's all I use them for. I have one app that it does really cool water reflections that rival even my photo. There's a lot of stuff I can do with my Photo Pro X, but actually with my recent update, I'm actually using that app less and less because I had a recent update in my Photo Pro, and so my water reflection, there's a lot of things that I can do better with that now. It's more intuitive to what I'm doing, and so, or it could just be I'm learning to use the program better and better. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's their update or if it's just the fact that I'm learning to use it more from using that app and getting that practicing and seeing what it is that I'm looking for, and then being able to translate that into probably a combination of the two. But really, I'm kind of rambling now, but that's the whole story. That's how that's the thing. That's what this all is. I mean, it was never a business plan, and it just became one. And the whole apparel line, that happened by accident because I was thinking, well, maybe I'll do a couple of my logo t-shirts, because transferring my art over into the t-shirts most of the time, I just never liked the way it looked, just being a block on the front of a t-shirt. My logo is cool being a block because it's a logo, But as far as my artwork, it just looked boring. And then when I realized that, you know, Teespring has all these new things that you can apply, and then I realized, I was like, now that is what I want to do with my artwork on apparel. And so that's how I wound up launching the apparel line. Again, there was never a business plan to it. There's never been a business model to it. It just happened. So this whole thing, you know, this whole venture with Petey Gone Mad Arts, I mean, if we're going to be honest, I've been winging it from day one. I mean, some people look at that and they're like, my God, that's the worst business model in the world. How can you do that? How could you not have a bit? But there was never a business model. I mean, I come from the business world, so I understand why people would look at, but there was never a business model for this to begin with. It was never planned as a business. Now that, you know, now I'm starting to think about it more as a business. You know, I am thinking about it more as a business. I'm thinking, like right now, all the prices that are set on my stuff, you know, to me, it's kind of high. I want to bring the prices down, but I'm waiting to get more designs out there and get my name recognition out there. And then I'm going to start working with the prices to bring prices down. I could probably reduce my profit margins by about 50%, and it will do what I want. And then I'll have special pieces that are for a project that, you know, that's another point to this too, that, you know, I haven't talked about it in a long time. When I started thinking about selling my art, again, you know, it was never really a business model, but the thought was, you know, well, you know, I still, you know, I'll be doing my trucking business because that's, you know, my career, but I'll still do my art as a hobby. And out of that hobby, you know, I'll get name recognition. People will start being interested in things I'm saying. And then I'll be able to transform that into the influence that I need to launch my Rebuilding America campaign, which is all around helping homeless people. It's all about rebuilding neighborhoods and helping the homeless, but doing it all outside of government intervention. No government funding. It's all going to be worked around true capitalism to the best of our abilities in this false capitalist market that we live in. I don't want to get into the politics of it, but so many people think we live in a free market. They don't understand that America is not a free market. We're not a free market at all. No. We're a semi-free market, but we're not what people think of. It's not, we're not a free market. We keep being sold as a free market, but I don't want to get into the politics of all that, because that's not what this is about. But, you know, that was another thing. I mean, so like I said, this whole thing has been really just a hobby and a pet project. It was never meant to become the business that I was going to retire on. But that's what it's becoming, is my retirement. So, sorry the video is so long, but it's the real story to Petey Gone Mad Arts. I mean, people want to know what the story is and what influences me. And I mean, the short story, if you really want to tell people the short story of what it is, I've been winging it. I mean, there's more to it than that, you know. It's morphing out of winging it, but that's really all it. There was no business model. There's never been a business model. The business model is only just now starting to develop, and I've let the business model develop into what it's going to be all on its own. I mean, I haven't even turned a profit yet. I've not turned a single dollar of profit on the business. The business is 100% loss. So, but you know, that's what happens when you're building a business from the ground up. I mean, you can have 5, 6, even 7 years of, I mean, look at Tesla. Tesla to this day still has not shown a profit. It's a multi-billion-dollar company that's never shown a profit. So, you know, I mean, that's what happens when you're building a business from scratch. You go years and years without turning a profit before it finally... Hopefully I won't be following the Tesla model and going a decade without a profit. You know, that would kind of... I don't want to be... You know, I really want to get out of this industry that I'm in. As much as I love this industry, it's taken so much away from me that I just have no love for it anymore at the same time. This industry has taken so much away from me. But, so, you know, that's really all it is. It was never a business. It was never planned as a business. It just turned into a business. And that's the story.